Welcome everyone to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday. Today our guest is Powell Chee. Powell is a multifamily and self-storage investor, and he runs several businesses as well. He leads the global networking community called Multifamily Masters, which is the fastest growing multifamily meetup in the universe. In just 2.5 years, they have grown from one meeting of 8 people in a hotel lobby in Los Angeles to a membership of over 10,000 people across 60 plus locations and in the US and one in Hong Kong. And Powell lives in Los Angeles, but all of his investments are out of state. Altogether, he's a general partner owner on over 1,000 apartment units in cities such as Indianapolis, Dallas, Jacksonville, Atlanta, San Antonio, and Phoenix. Currently, he's under contract to close on his first self-storage facility, a 178-unit, 20,000 square feet property in Baton Rouge, LA. At this point, he still has his full-time job as well. So here's the interview. Hi, Powell. Welcome to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday, where we will discuss all about your first multifamily transaction. Thank you for joining us here in the show.
Absolutely, Jeff. Super happy to be here. Appreciate it. Thanks for asking me.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, tell us about yourself.
Oh, sure. So my name is Powell Chee. I live in Los Angeles. I am a multifamily and self-storage investor. I run several businesses too, kind of along the way. And I run this business also called Multifamily Masters, which is it's a global networking community. That's what I like to call as the fastest growing multifamily meetup group in the universe, right? And so that's my whole thing. And now, I don't know, maybe we're number 1 or number 2, who knows? But, I started like 2.5 years ago, started with just 8 people and then grew out to, we have our memberships over like 10,000 people nowadays. And we have 60 locations throughout mostly the United States, but a couple in the world as well. So one in Hong Kong. So, and like I mentioned, I live in LA. All my investing has been out of state. So when I started investing, everything was outside of the state of California, and that was been my primary focus. So started with my first property. I guess we'll get into that one. Then got into another one with a JV with a couple different people. Then got into syndications and 5 different syndications. And then now I have a self-storage deal that I'm working on right now.
Okay, now, nice. Yeah, then how did you end up in multifamily?
I started in single family, bought my first single family, which is single family house in Kansas City. And, again, live in LA, bought it in Kansas City. It was a turnkey property and actually did really, really well with it. But I really quickly found out that I was just not going to be able to repeat this process as fast as I would like to do. And I just said, I gotta do a different, get into it, involved in a different asset class. So I realized multifamily was really the way I wanted to go. It could scale up a lot faster. So that's how I got into multifamily. Bought my first multifamily about a year after that. And that was January 2017 was my first multifamily.
Oh, nice. Then I think this will be important for our listeners who want to get to their first deal. Like any limiting belief that you have, and how did you overcome it to get to your first deal?
Sure, I'm sure that I have tons of limiting beliefs, but I just don't have them in front of my mind of like what held me back. Sometimes you have the holding back of the feeling of holding back because you want to make sure things are perfect, right? And I was consciously, I guess, aware at the time, like I just gotta know about 90% of, I know about 90%, but there's 10% of the situation that's going to be unknown, and I don't know that, and you just kind of have to make that leap. And so I just consciously pushed myself a little forward and said, you're not going to know everything. You're not going to know 100% of this whole situation. 90%, go forward, and action will be better than just kind of learning by books and things like that.
Yep. I think the best teacher is really like the experience, learning by experience.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about your first deal in the multifamily. Like, how did you find this? What's the source of the deal?
Okay, yeah, sure. So my first deal was a multifamily deal, was a 40-unit building in Indianapolis, right? So I live in LA, and that was in Indianapolis, January 2017. And I had been searching for properties in Kansas City, Indianapolis, and Memphis. Those were the 3 markets that I chose, and I was consistently talking to brokers in all 3 cities and looking to, get involved in my first one. It so happened to be that Indianapolis was the deal that I found. And after, analyzing 50, 100 deals at that time, I realized that when that one popped up, I was like, this is the deal that I really got to go for, right? And it was through, I would say, I found it online, but it wasn't in the normal channels. Like I was clicking through like people's bio and going through a lot of different links. And I honestly don't remember how I got to where I got to. And then I ended up on this one site that I had never been on. And I said, well, look at this deal. And I said, I've never seen this deal. I don't even know if this is right or not, but it looks really good. So immediately just picked up the phone and called the broker and said, is this deal still good? And she said, yeah, I just put it out maybe a week ago. And you're probably like the second person that's called on it. And I was like, oh, great. So I knew that I was in there early and that nobody had really seen this property, right? And because it was hidden, I mean, I was searing all the time for stuff and I couldn't find it. And I didn't know how to get back to there. So I was like, I got to save this page because I don't know how I got here. And I immediately after, I said, hey, send me your, send me your OM. They sent me that. And then quickly after that, I said, I'll review it and get some numbers back to you. So I reviewed it. Then 24 hours, got them some numbers back. And then we were just off negotiating at that particular point right there. So I guess I got it online through a broker that I contacted, but truthfully, I don't even know how I got there. And I don't even know what that website was anymore. I don't have it anymore. So, but it was there.
That's nice.
And maybe to say this too, it was done by a residential broker. So maybe that's kind of why it wasn't done by a commercial broker. So it wasn't done by a multifamily specialist. It was done by a residential broker. So maybe they just didn't put it in the right place or just kind of messed it up or something, but it worked to my advantage.
Yeah. I think that's a good point also, like regarding residential broker. For our listeners, like it's not only like you need to reach out to commercial brokers, you also can reach out to residential brokers because sometimes because most of these residential broker, they do marketing. And you never know when their target person has a multifamily apartments that a mom and pop that they're selling. Now they don't know what to do with it. Then once you're in front of the residential brokers, then they will call you. Then it's kind of an off market because they don't know how to market it, how to do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you're able to pick up something that wasn't listed as a into the sort of multifamily listings, right? It's just kind of hidden inside of residentials, and you can pick it up that way, which is what I did, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Then what's the class of this property? Is it a B, C, or?
I would say it is probably a C class property in a C minus area is what I would say it probably is.
Okay. Then what was the story behind, like, I don't know if you were able to get the reason why the seller was selling or.
Sure. So the seller was living out of state, just like me, living out of state. They had a property manager, and I think he had it for 10 years, and it was going well for 10 years. And then he said his property manager, actually, he died a year earlier. So 9 years into it, his property manager died, and his daughter took it over. And his daughter at that time, basically, he said, was stealing from him. He's like, he's like, they had a lawsuit against each other, both the property management company and he had a lawsuit against each other. The property was in just really bad shape. And it was going through just rough times in terms of, like he was pretty close to getting foreclosed on. Like the bank was pretty close to starting the process of taking this back. Wow. And so he needed to sell it. Right. And so he knew he could keep it afloat for a while, but he wasn't going to be able to bring it back to where it needed to be. So, yeah, he was a little bit of a desperate seller. He needed to sell it. He was ready to make something happen. He could keep it afloat for a while, but he knew that like the bank was kind of breathing down his neck a little bit. And he didn't really have a property manager to kind of, so he actually had to move back, and he moved back to Indianapolis and kind of was there just to go through the process of the sale.
Oh, yeah. I think that's the problem with out of state owner, if the property management kinds of derails, then yeah, it will be a big tough call.
For sure.
Yeah. Then were you able to get like a T12 or rent roll on this property?
So the short answer is no. Because they were suing each other, the property manager did not give any records to the owner, who I was dealing with the owner. So the owner only had about 2 months worth of financials, and they weren't really that great of financials, right? So it was just like, you know, a month and a half worth of like what was collected and what was expense, right? And so it was just like, you know, we're talking about like 10 lines of text, and just, you know, that's it. Like, here's text, and it was on one piece of sheet of paper. It was just like a little paragraph, and I was like, this is it? I was like, I think I need more than this. And they're like, truthfully, we hired they told me they hired a forensic, I don't know, forensic person who, you know, analyzes this kind of a data to try to get their stuff. And I mean, this is all they were able to get, and they could update me each month that it just kind of went by, but no T12, right? And rent roll, I guess I got the rent roll, but you know, it's T12, but you know, that's kind of it. T I guess 2, I guess is
yeah, T2, then you just kind of annualize.
yeah. So so that was kind of like, you know, that was pretty difficult. I mean, I guess, you know, you run into that situation, most people are going to be very, very scared of that. I guess in my situation, I got very lucky. The reason why I got very lucky was that bank that was going to take back his loan was the bank that I was going to have, that was going to like fund me, right? It's the same bank, because I have a good relationship with them, right? They're sort of a smaller national bank, right? So they have a national presence, but you know, on a smaller scale. So they're not Chase or something like that. But so they knew that this property was not doing good, and they were about to take it back. So they were like, look, at worst, we got to get a different owner in there, right? So they were very accommodating to like say, okay, Powell, we will work with you, even though you don't have this experience. You only have one single family house that you rent. You know, but we have a relationship with you. We'll try to make this work. And so, you know, they did make it work, and I was able to use a lot of like what the records they were seeing, as far as like the records that I had. You know, that was like it was a way for me to say, okay, what are you getting? Because those are the records that I need, you know, to put together my portfolio to show you guys. That's, you know, I'm going to show you guys the same thing that you guys are giving me, right? So, so it ended up working out though.
So again, that's a good so it's a coincidence, kind of.
Yeah,
that's a
worked out well for me. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So what was the original asking price on this property?
Yeah, so 40 units. It was 895,000.
Okay, 895.
Yeah.
Then like how much were you able to get it for?
We settled on 820,500. Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Then do you recall like what's the economic vacancy on this property when you bought it?
You know, it was listed at let me see, physical occupancy was listed at about like 90 or 92. So I think there was 3 or 4 units that were down at that particular time, and not, you know, not occupied. Now, to answer your answer of economic occupancy, significantly lower than that. I can't say exactly what that number was, but it was only bringing in maybe like 80% of the money that it should have been at that time. So maybe somewhere around 80% economic occupancy. Maybe something around there.
Okay, yeah, nice. Then what was the financing breakdown on this? Like how much was the loan amount for the bank, and then
yeah, sure. I think the loan amount was $680,000, the loan amount, right? So I had to come in with about 100 and I can't remember if it was 180 or 220. It was somewhere in that. So somewhere around 200,000 that I had to come in with, you know, plus closing costs and things like that. They didn't, you know, they were like, hey, pal, it's one of the things I remember, I didn't have to get it appraised because it recently got appraised because because when they were about to take it over, I think they recently did an appraisal. So I could actually use that appraisal, but that appraisal was a little bit lower. It was like, that appraisal was for like 805, and I was buying it at like 820.
Yeah.
So they were like, so you're gonna have to come up with the remaining, right? Well, we can base your loan off of 805, and you have to come up with the rest.
Yeah, the difference of
so
the purchase.
yeah, so I was like, okay, sure, you know, I mean, that's fine. So I was able to do that. Yeah, so in terms of financing, and then the thing about it too is they said, Powell, we're only going to give you a 1-year loan. So it was a 1-year, 25-year amortization. I think it was like somewhere between 4.5, maybe 4.2, somewhere around there. And it was like for 1 year. And they're like, if you show like, you know, you're a good borrower or whatever, we can renew it after a year, right? And we can renew it after a year to like 5 years. And I was like, okay, so cool. So we'll do that. We'll do it for a year, and then, you know, we'll do it after that. We'll do it for 5. Now, obviously not ideal. It's not the best, right? But you know, it was my first one, and they were working with me. And if they didn't, you know, it could have fell through at any particular time, right? They didn't have to do it. And I thought it was pretty good to at least get this loan going. And you know, I felt like, yeah, in a year I'll be able to refinance, or not refinance. I'll be able to renew the.
Okay. Yep. Then how much was the CapEx budget that you planned for this one?
Sure. So let me see. I think I budgeted 100,000. But I didn't use, or I had that money when I closed, but I didn't have that money pretty quickly after that, because I started to buy another property and I used some of that money. So I didn't have all of my CapEx to fix everything, right? Now, I wouldn't say that's the smartest thing to do or the best thing to do, but that is what I did. And so I used some of the sort of my reserves and my CapEx that I was using for this property to go buy another property. So I didn't have as much. So it allowed me to go get another property, but it also made this property go a lot slower because I wasn't able to fix a lot of things very fast. Yeah.
So. Then I think this is like your own deal, right? You're the only one. Then, yeah. What was your business plan? Do you still hold this property?
Yeah, I still own it.
Okay.
It's still like, you know, it's still like in the phase of, hey, we still gotta put a lot of work into it. We still gotta put a lot of money into it. We still gotta do it. So it's not a deal that I'd say that like, hey, you know, it's a home run deal and I turned it around in 2 years and you know, I sold it and anything like that. No, it still does have a lot of work. When I took it over, there was a lot of work that needed to get done. Now I've been going through and doing a lot of that work and getting a lot of it done, but when you don't have all of your CapEx ready to put towards it and spend that money up front, then you're kind of eating out of your cash flow. So I'm kind of eating out of my cash flow a lot to fund this property, right? So so that can be tight, you know, it can be tight situations of doing that, right? And yeah, so that's kind of where it is right now.
Okay. Yeah. What was your business plan on this? Like, do you eventually plan to hold it or kind of flip it after maybe 7 years?
I'm open to it right now. You know, I'm open to what I will do after this. I would say my original plan going in was that I was going to hold this for 10 years or so, you know, maybe long term. As I've gotten more into it, I feel like it's a great starter apartment, you know, at this level, but not necessarily where I want to be for 10 years or for, you know, for long term or hold it forever, right? You know, originally I thought, oh, I'm going to hold this thing forever, my whole life. But now I feel like, hey, I'm going to probably get it fixed up to the point where I would like to get it fixed up where I eventually can think about selling it at a good profit, right? During that time though, I may be able to work ways that I can, you know, put a different line of credit on it or anything like that, and allow the property to help me buy other properties and things like that. So that's what my plan is right now, is to utilize this asset to either with a sale or like a line of credit to help me purchase other properties or invest in other deals and things like that. So.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what my
that's a
plan is
good
right now.
point also. Yeah, it could be also a line of credit so that at least you still own it, then still cash flows if it's a good cash flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we're going now to the next segment of the show where we'll talk about all the due diligence that was done. Yeah. Anything that you recall, like what due diligence that you have done on this property?
Sure. So there was a lot of different things that I did early on, right? You know, first of all, this property, you know, you have to, in terms of due diligence, right? I did get it inspected, and you know, had inspector, had my property manager, who I had at the time, you know, walk through the units, tell me about the property, tell me what they think, you know, what would it rent for, and things like that. However, I would say the property, it came up that it was going to need, obviously it was going to need a phase one, right? The bank was like, hey, you need to get a phase one done. And so I got the phase one environmental study done. And then in that study, they said, you probably need a phase two. You need a phase two done. So I had to get a phase two done, which means now instead of just paperwork and look at historical records, they need to go and drill down into the groundwater and find out if there's I don't know, I think there was like a dry cleaner on there in the 1920s or the 1950s. And then they need to find out if the chemicals were still there into the groundwater. And they needed to check the radon levels in one of the units and things like that. So these were all like, whoa, what am I doing here? Like, checking radon? We don't have radon in California. I've never heard of radon. And how did you mitigate radon, right? It's part of the earth emanating some type of radiation. You know, what are you doing with that? And so I was like, I have no idea what to do with radon mitigation. I don't know. I didn't know that dry cleaners were such the big culprits of, you know, environmental pollution at the time. You know, I guess didn't think of dry cleaning. I could see a gas station, but they're like, oh, dry cleaners were some of the worst. They just threw out all their chemicals out the front door, right? They just threw it all out, and so it just went to the groundwater. Wow. So yeah, going into a phase two on your first property is kind of like, oh, what am I, you know, going to a phase two? This is kind of major process. But it came back, you know, and then it came back fine. They passed. Yeah, so it passed. And so, yeah, so that was good. Yeah, but you know, there was a lot of question marks at that point because they were like, hey, if this doesn't pass the phase two and you need to fix it, if you buy this property, you could end up having to dig up hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of, you know, digging to get this excavated, all this stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to do this if it comes down to that, right? So, but yeah, luckily for me, you know, I came back fine, no problems with the phase two. So things like that, those were processes that I kind of went through, you know, just as like first time buyer and going through a lot of that early due diligence phases. So.
Yeah. How much did it cost you? Like at least during the due diligence, if you remember, like cost wise, you're out of pocket.
I think my inspection was somewhere around $3,000 to $4,000 to do that, right? Then phase one was probably about like $2,000, and then I think the phase two was more like another $3,000 to $4,000. I can't remember. Truthfully, to be honest, I don't know if those numbers sound about right, but I think there was something around there. I'm pretty sure the inspection was about like $4,400. The phase one and phase two, I think, were both around like 2,000 each, maybe to 3,000, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I think the T12. I think we didn't get the T12 and the rentro.
No T12. No, didn't get that T12.
Yeah. Then I think this is all your own money, so there's no capital raise.
Yeah, no capital raise. No. No. It was kind of like I wanted to do this. Like I knew that I had a network of people that I could reach out to and raise capital. And that was something that I eventually thought I would do. But when I wanted to do my first one, I wanted to make sure, hey, I don't want to raise it from people and, you know, take on investors' money when you're going through all this process. It's your first time. You don't really know if this is the right thing, and you don't have any background in owning a 40 unit property. You're only going to own it for a year. You know, the bank is only giving you a 1 year term, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, I didn't want to take anybody's money. You know, just kind of be like, okay, this is my money, my situation. If mess up, then it's on me. But you know, after owning it for a little while, then people started to say, okay, you know, hey, I'm interested in your next deal. You know, what about your next deal? So that was my plan on it to begin with, was just to go in by myself.
Yep, yep. I think that's a good value that you have, is really the credibility and also the responsibility that you want really to make, because before you get people's money, you want to know and tested it first by your own
Yeah,
before investing theirs. Yep, that's a good quality.
sure. Appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, it's good. It's good. It's good. You know, you get that sort of credibility and experience yourself, but it does tie up all your money. Like basically tied up all my money, right? I wasn't able to do anything else ever unless I raised capital or unless I partnered with people, because it does tie up all your money.
Yes, yeah. Then regarding closing, do you recall like how much was the closing cost roughly on this?
There wasn't a lot of closing costs from the bank, right? They that was probably one of the reasons I did go with them too, is because there wasn't a lot of closing costs. They just kind of rolled, you know, there wasn't a lot of extra costs. The appraisal had already been done, right? That's another one that would have been $4,000, right, to get the appraisal done. But that was already done. They just accepted the appraisal that had been done a year or year and a half before.
Oh, nice.
So that's a major cost that I didn't have to pay for. So because I was working directly with the bank and not a mortgage broker, I didn't have to pay any extra points on that. And they didn't really take many extra points or anything like that, anything else. So it kind of just rolled into the loan. And that's kind of what it was. You know, they didn't require reserves either. They didn't quite require, like, you know, me to put away reserves or for me to draw on certain reserves that they held back or anything like that. So to me, it was, you know, a good loan. So that's why I went with it, even though it was 1 year, you know, but.
Oh yeah. It's kind of a crunch that, okay, you need to perform.
Yeah, actually, just to follow up with that, after a year, they did, they renewed it. So they said, hey, you know, you made all your payments, right? So everything is, you know, looking good. You're looking better, and, you know, you're not perfect, but you're looking better. So we'll renew it for another year, because they're like, they wanted to see my tax returns. And I was like, we bought it at a time where I was like, I don't have my tax returns done yet. And so, but I need the loan to renew. And so they renewed it, and they just kind of said, okay, we're going to renew it at the rate that it's at right now. Right. So at that particular time, I think it went up. So I think I started at like 4.1, and then I went up to like 4.55 or something like that. I take that back. I started at 3.8. It was 3.85, and then it went up to 4.55, I think is what it went up to. So I was like, oh man, it went up, and now I got to pay more, and, you know, that kind of thing. Wasn't happy about it, but I was like, okay, whatever. So they're going to renew it for another year. So they said, we'll renew it for another year, and by that time you should have 2 years of tax returns, and now we can maybe do it for a 5 year, after that. And so that did happen, and I was able to, after the 2 years, they said, okay, we'll renew it for a 5 year one, 5 year term right now. So it's inside of that 5 year term. And just to kind of follow that same line, I ended up getting, truthfully, I didn't remember asking them specifically for this, but it's a 5 year term, but it adjusts every year, right? So I didn't really ask for an adjustable, but I think they gave me an adjustable because I asked for no prepayment penalty, because I was thinking I might sell this property within this 5 year period. So I don't want a prepayment penalty. I know that. So in order to do that, they gave me sort of an adjustable rate. So the first year it was like 4.25, right? I think in my first year, right? And then it just, every April, it basically resets. And if you know what happened in April of 2020, the rates went way down, right? So I was at 4.25, and it went way down. So for this year right now, it's like 2.125 right now. So for this year, it's like 2.125. Yeah. So I didn't plan it that way, that it worked out, but I was like, hey, it works out. It works out for me. And, you know, they say maybe for the next year or so that the rates will probably end up staying around the same, or at least lower than 4.25 or 4.5 or whatever it was at its highest. So for right now, it's, you know, I'm happy with the way that the loan is turning out. So.
Yeah, 2.1 is really low. Yeah, that's
2.125. Nice. I know, 2.125. Yeah, and just so that people can understand this too, it's not so much that the dollar amount is any less, because I still pay the same dollar amount, right? It's just that a significant more of the principal is paid than if it was a higher rate. So
yeah, I think it's the principal pay down will be much faster. Yeah.
It's like double. It's like double than it was before.
Yeah, that's nice. Then I guess like how long did it did I ask you? How long did it take for the LOI to closing in this one?
So I think it took about, I believe that it was in May of 2016 that I submitted like that LOI. I closed in January of 2017. So we're talking 7 months, 8 months, basically 7, 8 months. I mean, you got to realize going through a phase one, right? And then you go through a phase two. Yeah, that takes time. And then plus all the, back and forth of, lender and this and that, right? First time buyer. So there was a lot of delays. However, the buyer or the seller, I was very active in trying to get everything closed. So it was, he kind of understood that like, hey, it's not really him. It's like the seller, the bank has to wait until the phase 2 testing results come back. And those don't just come back in 2 days. They have to, go through process and this and that. And, around the holidays, nobody's closing, nobody's answering their phones and stuff like that. So you got a lot of that kind of stuff going on. Yeah.
Okay.
So it took a while. It did take a while.
Okay. Yeah. Then, we reached the last segment of the show where I asked these final 5 sizzling questions to each and every guest that I have. So the first question, any lessons learned that you want to share from this experience in terms of deal analysis, due diligence, or closing experience?
Sure. I mean, in terms of some of those, I think I gave a lot of what I already have, but I would say the biggest lesson to learn in this is really you gotta have a good property manager, and I didn't really, right? So I had to fire my property manager, and I've kind of gone through a couple different property managers in this time, but I held on to that one way too long, and so that made that property really suffer for a long time. Just holding on to them way too long. So if I were giving some advice, try to source different property managers, and if your property manager isn't performing, like sort of like a star, and you just can rave about them, then you got to think about letting them go, because there's probably somebody else that's better than them.
Okay, yeah, that's a great advice. Then the second question, like any recommended books?
Yep. So I mean, there's so many books out there and everything right now. Right now I'm reading Brendan Bouchard's book, High Performance Habits, which I think is a great book. So that's a great book. The One Thing is a great book by Gary Keller. Obviously the book that I think probably everybody's read, but the Robert Kiyosaki book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I mean, I think that's a fantastic book, right? And that's a great one. And then I don't know, early on, I know that for me, just kind of not just purely about real estate and investing, but The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod was an important book for me, just to kind of change mindset and get involved in different things of creating your morning routine and how that could be beneficial for you.
Yep. Thanks for sharing those books. And
sure.
Yeah. Then the third question is any recommended podcast or YouTube channel that you're listening to and would recommend?
How about yours, Jeff? I mean, I recommend yours, man. Okay, so yeah, for sure. Yeah, yours is great. Absolutely, subscribe. You should definitely subscribe to this. Subscribe to Jeff's. As far as other ones, there's so many. There's many of them out there. Like for me, like with my group, Multifamily Masters, we run like a live event that we have every 2 weeks, and so that's one that I would say that I endorse fully. Like it's Multifamily Masters Live. We hold it every 2 weeks, and we have different guests and or different presentations on there. But in terms of real estate investing out there, I mean, there are so many. It's hard to say, really. There's so many that you can choose from. There's some that are just kind of basic around real estate investing in general. There's other ones that are more specific about multifamily, or self-storage or whatever it is. So there's so many out there. It's really hard to name just one specific one, but I would say podcasts are an incredible resource, and you should definitely get involved and listen to them as much as possible. Like I learned a ton on there, and I continue to listen to my Stitcher radio is full of podcasts right now. So
yeah, same here. Like I've been educating myself to podcasts, and like a lot of people are out there like bringing a lot of value. And then
absolutely
having great guests and stuff. Then I will also post the Multifamily Master. I'm attending the Multifamily Master and also it's dated every other Monday, I believe, right?
Yeah. Every other Monday is what we do right now.
Yeah. So I'll post there's a Facebook group for Multifamily Masters that I'm a member also. So I'll post that in the show notes if you're interested in joining the Multifamily Masters.
Absolutely. Thank
Facebook
you.
group.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a really, really, really good group. And you tend to also, what I love in that group is you have this breakout rooms.
Yeah, we do the breakout rooms. So we were born out of meetup groups in person, right? And so meeting people in person, getting a chance to talk about who you are and where you're from, what you're interested in, and finding out other people you can partner with. And I mean, that was really where the group was born. And so we do it all online right now because of COVID, but we try to facilitate as much networking as we can. Absolutely.
Yeah. By the way, like, what's the plan on that? Like, let's say everything opens up. Yeah, I'm hoping like it will be like some of it maybe virtual still, or what's the
MFM Live, which is our community-wide event every 2 weeks, will still continue to be virtual.
Okay.
But as the states start to open, each of the different chapters, each of our 60 chapters are welcome to open whenever they feel safe. So a lot of them are kind of eager to get back into in-person meetups and seeing people in person. So they will start that whenever they're ready, but we will continue to have some virtual events for sure for the whole community.
Yep. And I think if you want to be like a chapter owner in your state or city, contact Powell.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested, we have people all over the place, and that's generally how a lot of people get involved and start a chapter. We can certainly help you out. Absolutely.
Okay, that's awesome. Then I guess like so the fourth question is this is the time to promote yourself, and what's your acquisition criteria for multifamily, like location, units, class, and this is to let everyone know and reach out to you if they have deals in those areas.
Okay, sure. So what I've done recently is that ever since COVID, right? So I would say my story kind of shifted a little bit once COVID happened, is that I instead of going for the same deals that I saw pre-COVID, I really said, hey, I want to only do what I consider home run deals. And what I consider a home run deal to me is something that I can confidently project that I can refinance this property within 3 to 4 years and return all of my investors' capital, 100% of their capital within that 3 to 4 years. So there has to be enough value add. There has to be enough ability. There has to be enough of what I see as a property that can turn around and achieve that. And if you have sort of slim earnings or slim profit, you can't do that in 3 to 5 years and confidently project that. So to me, that is a home run. And to me, that is the only deals that I will do right now. And which also kind of led me to look at other asset classes, because it's hard to find that in multifamily right now. They're not easy, and the ones that are out there are probably sought after by many different groups. So it's very tough to get them. And so I started looking at different asset classes and started looking at self-storage. And so I got one under contract right now, but that's what I continue to look at, is different asset classes like self-storage, where I can also find that type of projection and feel confident about it and feel like this can be a home run deal, right? This has the potential to be a home run deal. And so that's what I'm looking for. Deals like that have to have enough meat on the bone. In general, I would say for multifamily, it's anywhere from 100 to 150 units. And say in that $5 to $9 million range. In self-storage, my thresholds are a little bit lower. It's more like $1 to $3 million purchase price, and in a JV. So truthfully, I do mostly JVs now, not really syndications. So I'm looking for people that want to, be involved in the property, and they want to learn, they want to get experience, and perhaps I can be a person that can help them get to the next level where they can go ahead and do some on their own. They can create their own JVs, or they can create their own syndications. But they probably have some capital that they can invest in as well. So to me, that's generally what my network is. People that have some capital, but that are very interested in being an active part of the deal. And that's what I'm looking for as far as my partners and what type of deals that I'm going to take down in the near future here.
Okay, perfect. Good, nice. Then what's the best way to contact you, Powell?
Sure. I guess, the best way is you can contact me through email. So Powell, just my first name, Powell, 2 L's, at Multifamily Masters. And that's MultifamilyMasters with a S.com. So, or if you just go to Multifamily Masters, our website.com, you can see my information on there as well. And, reach out to me. I'm certainly super involved with our organization. Happy to talk with anybody and set up a call and things like that.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. Then I will also put in the show notes, as I said before, Powell's information and the link to that Multifamily Masters Facebook group, and also they have a link for the, I think if you want to register to their the every other week on Monday.
Yep.
So they have
MFM Live. Yeah, feel free to join that. Absolutely, as well.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to grow my Instagram a little bit. I don't know. I just put that out there. So feel free to join me on Instagram. I mean, my Instagram's pretty tiny, but I'm starting to try to put myself out there a little bit more. So I think it's at Powell.Chee is my Instagram handle. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I guess I enjoyed the show, and then thanks for a lot of value and gold nuggets that you've thrown in this episode.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely. I loved it.